Merry Meet. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are working a psalm spell, and today we are working on Psalm 44. Traditionally, Psalm 44 is used for a few different purposes. We're going to use it today to overcome an intolerable situation. So anybody that's got an intolerable situation in their lives, we can turn to this psalm to break it up. So we're going to do that today together. And the way we work these spells is very simple. We take the psalm and we read it out loud all the way through once without stopping. This is the incantation part of the spell. And then we go back through the psalm, and the magical section of this work is when we go back through it and we look for those hidden inner meanings within each and every verse. There's infinite amounts of those, and we look at them as little packets of magical seeds that through this planting, we plant these seeds in our deep mind through the digging and the searching and the contemplating of these inner meanings. And when we do that, we notice that these seeds that are planted actually take root and grow and bear fruit after their own kind. And it's exciting. So we're going to do that today to overcome any intolerable situation. And here we go with Psalm 44. We have heard with our ears, O God, our fathers have told us what work thou didst in their days, in the times of old. How thou didst drive out the heathen with thy hand, and plantest them. How thou didst afflict the people, and cast them out. For they got not the land in possession by their own sword, neither did their own arm save them, but by thy right hand, and thine arm, and the light of thy countenance, because thou hadst favor unto them. Thou art my king, O God, command deliverances for Jacob. Through thee will we push down our enemies, through thy name will we tread them under the rise up against us. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me, but thou hast saved us from our enemies, and hast put them to shame that hated us. In God we boast all the day long, and praise thy name forever, Selah. But thou hadst cast off and put us to shame, and goest not forth with our armies. Thou makest us to turn back from the enemy, and they which hate us spoil for themselves. Thou hast given us like sheep appointed for meat. Thou hast scattered us among the heathen. Thou sellest thy people for naught, and dost not increase thy wealth by their price. Thou makest us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. Thou makest us a byword among the heathen, a shaking of the head among the people. My confusion is continually before me, and the shame of my face hath covered me. For the voice of him that reproacheth and blasphemeth by reason of the enemy and avenger. All this has come upon us, yet have we not forgotten thee, neither have we dealt falsely in thy covenant. Our heart is not turned back, neither have our steps declined from the way. Though thou hast sore broken us in the place of dragons, and covered us with the shadow of death. If we have forgotten the name of our God, or stretched out our hands to a strange God, shall not God search this out? For he knoweth the secrets of our heart. Yea, for thy sake are we killed all the day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Awake, why sleepest thou, O Lord? Arise, cast us not off forever. Wherefore hidest thou thy face, and forgettest our affliction and our oppression? For our soul is bowed down to the dust, our belly cleaveth unto the earth. Arise for our help, and redeem us for thy mercy's sake. So it starts out, we have heard with our ears, O God, our fathers have told us what work thou didst in their days, in the times of old. Okay, first of all, who are we addressing here? They're calling it God. Sometimes it's the Lord. And God, or the Lord of the Psalms, from a magical point of view, is not a religious symbol. This is not a deity that is separate from us, and it's always important to remember that again and again and again. God, in this sense, is the principle of life itself. And it is that which is beating your heart right now. It is that which is keeping the planet revolving around a sun. It is that which causes a tree to come out of an acorn. Okay, God is infinite love, infinite life, perfect infinite intelligence, perfect truth, all of those qualities that we talk about. It says that our Father, we have heard with our ears, O God, our fathers have told us what work thou didst in their days in the times of old. Yeah, back in the day, things were better. Back in the day, back in the age of miracles, back in the day when our fathers were, got miraculous things happening to them. So what's going on? What about us? Where's ours? So that's one thing about these Psalms is they are extremely honest. They don't pull any punches. So the majority of the Psalm is all about venting about this intolerable situation. How thou didst drive out the heathen with thy hand and plantest them. How thou didst afflict the people and cast them out. Okay, so the heathen and the people are referring to those thought forms within us that are responsible for the intolerable situations. Now, again, people misunderstand. We're not blaming the victim. We're not saying, well, if you're in an intolerable situation, why did you create that reality for yourself? We are recognizing that beyond this world of form, there is a world of cause. And that world of cause is in the mind, and all minds are joined. So the thought forms that are within our personal mind, but is also the thought forms within the collective unconscious mind and in the unconscious minds of all other beings that are causing any intolerable situation in our lives are what we are talking about here, those thought forms. So we're remembering that, well, in the past, these thought forms have gotten cast out. In the past, people have overcome intolerable situations when they've worked this magic. For they got not the land in possession by their own sword, neither did their own arm save them, but thy right hand and thine arm and the light of thy countenance, because thou hadst favor unto them. Okay, so this is talking about, even though the psalmist in this particular moment in their understanding of their problem isn't quite there yet, but the psalmist is discovering what works. And what works is not trying to solve the problem by ourselves, to not war with our enemies by ourselves, to not try to take things in our own hands, but instead we let what they're calling God in the psalm, we let infinite intelligence take over, because in the same power, like we said before, that knows how to direct the planets on their course, knows how to lift us out of this intolerable situation. We, on the other hand, don't know that. We know how to make it worse. Thou art my king, O God. Command deliverances for Jacob. Okay, so command deliverances for Jacob. Remember who Jacob is. Jacob is that part of our own minds that is very flawed, very human, always makes mistakes, always messes things up, but comes back and tries again and tries again and tries again. Okay, so that is the type of soul that we all are. We are Jacob at heart. We do our best, even though we fall short and we mess up a lot. But God doesn't see it that way. God didn't see it that way for Jacob in that story. God didn't say, well, Jacob, too bad you're so flawed. With all those character defects, I really can't help you. God said, well, not only am I going to help you, but I'm going to give you a new name. I'm going to call you Israel. I'm going to anoint you with all blessing. And that's the story of you. That's the story of me. It's not some character in history. That's exactly what's happening to us. Through thee will we push down our enemies. through thy name will we tread them under that rise up against us. So this is so important. It's not through our own efforts, but through the efforts of infinite intelligence that we push down our enemies. Now, who are our enemies? Our enemies are enemy thought forms. Enemy thought forms, right? The people and circumstances are the outpicturing of those thought forms. They are the results, not the cause of those. So, but it's through this power that those thought forms are destroyed, and thus the manifestations of those thought forms will vanish. And it's through thy name that we tread them under and rise up those that rise up against us. Well, what's the name of anything in the Psalms? The name means the nature of it. It's not some sacred name that you're going to learn one more new secret magic formula that if you utter it, then some vibration is going to come and make everything okay. That's not how magic works. The name of God simply means its nature, so that we have to remember the nature of God. God is infinite intelligence. God is perfect love. God is infinite light. God is infinite life. God is pure principle. God is law. Okay, God is all those things. And so it's through the nature of God that we overcome. So those things are very real qualities. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. So it's not our defenses that will protect us. In fact, they make it worse. When we try to defend ourselves against the problems, we reinforce the problems, and we make choices about how to defend ourselves which are erroneous and cause us more problems. We get ourselves into more and more trouble when we try to defend ourselves using our own power, separate and distinct from our Creator. But in God we boast all day long. Oops, I'm sorry, I missed one. But thou hast saved us from our enemies, and hast put them to shame that hated us. So again, we are putting this in the past tense. This is what happens. We put it in the past tense in magic, and that means that it's already occurred, and that means it's just a matter of whatever lag time there is before we see the evidence in the real world, in the manifest world. But thou hast saved us. In God we boast all the day long and praise thy name forever. Again, you don't praise the name like, oh God, you're so great, aren't you so wonderful? Gosh, God, I've never seen such a great God in my life. God does not care for that one way or the other. That's not going to make any difference. God's not, you can't get what you want by flattering some deity. Okay, that's not what's going to work. When we say, oops, where is that? When we say praise thy name forever, when you praise God's name forever, to praise something is to acknowledge it as being good. So we are saying that all good is good. Infinite intelligence is good. Perfect love is good. Perfect law is good. Perfect light is good. Right? Pure truth is good. So when you're praising God's name, it's practical. You're considering the qualities of God, which is God's name, the nature of God, and you're praising it, meaning you're acknowledging what's good about it. You're acknowledging that it's good. That in and of itself starts to change everything in your mind, and you'll notice things start clearing up just doing that. Just doing that. But thou hast cast off and put us to shame, and goest not forth with our armies. Thou hast made us to turn our back from the enemy. Okay, so now we're going into this whole litany of grievances against God. Okay, which is what the psalmist is going through, and which eventually the psalmist recognizes as being the problem. God's not doing any of the following things to us. This is a projection that we have. Instead of taking responsibility for the fact that we're not praising God's name all day long, meaning considering those qualities of divinity, Instead, we are focusing our minds on our problem, and rather than taking responsibility for changing our minds, we're saying, no, look, God's not helping us here. God's not helping us there. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with, why doesn't God love us anymore? Okay, so that's all projection. So here's how that sounds. Thou makest us to turn back from the enemy, and they which hate us spoil for themselves. Thou hast given us like sheep appointed for meat, and hast scattered us among the heathen. I mean, we're just it's almost like we're pissed at God here, right? Thou sellest thy people for naught. Thou dost not increase thy wealth by their price. Thou makest us a reproach to our neighbors, and a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. Just every problem that we're having, it's God's fault. God's doing it. It's God's fault, not us. It's God. Thou makest a byword amongst the heathen, a shaking of the head amongst the people. My confusion is continually before me, and the shame of my face hath covered me. You know, I'm ashamed, but it's still God's fault, right? For the voice of him that reproacheth and blasphemeth by reason of the enemy and avenger. Okay, this is good. My confusion is continually before me, and the shame of my face hath covered me. For the voice of him that reproacheth and blasphemeth by reason of the enemy and the avenger. All this has come upon us, yet have we not forgotten thee, neither have we dealt falsely in thy covenant. So he's kind of coming around. This one here, the voice of him that reproacheth and blasphemeth by reason of the enemy and avenger. One tiny way you can look at that is something that has been going on my YouTube channel today. Is I had put something up about how we need to be clean about the way we treat other people, think about other people, and speak about other people, because it makes a big difference in the things that happen to our lives, and the pushback on that was, yeah, well, then why do so many evil people get away with so many things, right? Well, this is talking about that too. And even they don't do anything, you know, so complaining that people aren't getting punished fast enough. Our heart is not turned back, neither have our steps declined from thy way. So now we're coming back to sanity here, saying, okay, but even with all of this, we're returning to reminding ourselves that even though this has come upon us, we have not forgotten God, neither have we dealt falsely in thy covenant. The covenant between you and God is the agreement that your way doesn't work and God's way does. So when you come back to understanding if something's not working, that you might be just possibly trying to fix things yourself and not considering the praise of the name of God, meaning considering all of the qualities of God instead of thinking about your problem. Our heart is not turned back, neither have our steps declined from thy way. Well, that's true. That's true. We are still on the road, but at the same time, we just had this whole litany of complaints against God. So we're not being completely honest. This psalmist is showing us how two-faced we are with God, or two-faced we are when we're doing any kind of spiritual work. We might be doing all kinds of spells for this, that, or the other thing, but then we go and thinking that nobody's listening, badmouth so-and-so, talk negatively about such and such, and then saying, see, and then now my spell doesn't even work. Right, so we're being we're busting ourselves about how we're being two-faced with our spirituality. Though thou hast sore broken us in the place of dragons and covered us with the shadow of death. Okay, so again, we're blaming God for that. We're blaming God for the dragons in our lives. We're blaming God for feeling broken and being covered with the shadow of death. We still keep forgetting in this psalm, occasionally it shines through, but we still keep forgetting our role in this, and that we are projecting all of this on God. This is so powerful. If we have forgotten the name of our God, or stretched out our hand to a strange God, shall not God search this out? For he knoweth the secrets of our heart. Okay, so this is very important. So forgetting the name of God means that you're going to think about your problems instead of the solutions. That's basically what that means. You're not thinking about the qualities of God. You're thinking about how bad everything is all the time. That's all you're obsessed with, is how bad everything is. That's forgetting the name of God. Stretching stretching out your hands to a strange God, meaning, well, I know that I have infinite abundance is mine. So if I need help financially, I know I can go to God, and that infinite abundance is mine. But instead we say, yeah, well, I'm going to go and try to get some money, and then once this bill is paid, then I'll come back and work with my spirituality. That's a false God. That's making money your God rather than God your God. If you make God your God, then the money is just an extension of God's will. God wills all good for you. But if you say, wait a minute, I don't think I can trust God on the money because I don't think he's going to be able to fix that. I don't think he's smart enough to handle that. I'll do that, and then I'll come back and do this other stuff, okay? So that's a false God. That's a false God. And God will search this out, but not to punish you, but just to show you, that remember, God's judgment is that God only knows you as God created you. God doesn't really know you as your problems. God is aware that you think you have problems, and God is there to heal those immediately, but God doesn't contemplate you as problematic. God sees you as God created you, which is perfect, pure love, pure light, absolutely thrilled with you. God's child in whom God is well pleased. God's infinite love only knows love for you. Only knows love for you. Yea, for thy sake are we killed all the day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Okay, now, he's talking about the sheep for the slaughter again. However, he's coming around to the idea, okay, wait a minute. Are we really being slaughtered as sheep for God's sake? He's coming around a little bit. Now, how about we look at that as being our image of ourselves as having this problem, our image of ourselves as being poor, our image of ourselves as being sick, our image of ourselves as being less than, as being vulnerable, as being broken. Those, for God's sake, we will kill. Those, for God's sake, we will put up for slaughter. Now, again, that's a very kind of violent image, but, consider the culture out of which these Psalms came. What we're saying here is that when we don't want to be slaughtered, but we want these false images of ourselves that are causing these problems to be slaughtered, to be taken from us. And we do that for God's sake. Awake, why sleepest thou, O Lord? Arise, cast us not off forever. Well, God doesn't sleep. God's not asleep. God hasn't forgotten you. You have forgotten. To the degree that your obsession with thinking about your problems is more important than thinking about God, there you have it. There's your intolerable situation. There's where you're keeping it alive. You have all power over which thoughts you choose to think. You might not believe it, but it's true. But it takes practice. Wherefore hidest thou face and forgettest our affliction and our oppression? God doesn't forget us, but God doesn't think about you as afflicted and oppressed. God thinks about you as perfect, happy, joyous, free, taken care of, prosperous, well-fed, very happy. That's how God thinks of you. If God started thinking of you as afflicted and oppressed, then that's the way it would be. So if we're afflicted and oppressed, we have to say, I want to start thinking about myself the way God thinks of me. So God, please show me your understanding of this situation, and let's replace that with mine, because mine's the problem. That's toward the beginning of the psalm where we were saying that we were going to lay down our sword. We can't fight this battle on our own. Well, that's where we've come. We've come full circle. Now we have to let God be God, and we can't start thinking for ourselves. We have to ask for help. I'm not going to make a decision about what this situation means. I'm going to ask for help. I'm not going to make a decision based on appearances, what my eyes are telling me, what my ears are telling me. I want God to tell me the truth about the situation. For our soul is bowed down to the dust, our belly cleaveth unto the earth. So we're just acknowledging how we're experiencing ourselves within this problem. But remember that those images of being bowed down and with our belly cleaving to the earth, those images are what we have to stop clinging to. We have to allow those to be replaced. Arise for our help and redeem us for our mercy's sake. So he finally says, you do it. You do it. And then after all that, after just not wanting to let go of the control of this problem, finally the psalmist says, oh, okay, I get it. Now you do it. And then that's the trick. And you just keep coming back to the psalm again and again and again and again until you see movement in the right direction. And it may take a little while. This psalm magic is the magic of a reconditioning your deep mind. Now, sometimes you get very fast results, and sometimes you get incremental results, and sometimes they take a little while. But you just keep coming back to it, and it never, ever fails. Thank you so much for being with me today. I can't wait to work with you again. And until next time, blessed be.